as part of my efforts to watch the first episode of every show that I grew up with, I decided it was time that I watched the first episode of Balamory, which is called Fish Supper. And based on the title, it didn't ring any bells. I couldn't remember it. As I started watching it, I didn't really have any specific memories, but there was certainly a lot of nostalgia with the songs. There was one song in this, though, that I don't remember at all. And even when I was listening to it, it didn't come back to me. Kind of strange. I'll share what that is in a moment. And this is definitely very realistic. This is something I vaguely remembered with Balamory, but the great thing about this is that it genuinely feels like we are watching children in a nursery classroom, and it feels very real. It feels very believable. It doesn't feel fabricated. It doesn't feel like they've hired a bunch of young drama students. Not that I have a problem with that, but it genuinely feels realistic, and I think that that's probably one of the beautiful things about this, is it makes it very either relatable for young children in a similar at a similar age or in a similar situation, or definitely helps to provide an accurate representation of what going to nursery might be like. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about this. This episode is all about a fish supper that they are planning. And when I was younger, I didn't really pick up on this, or I don't remember picking up on this. But the term fish supper is not really used outside of Scotland. It basically just means fish and chips. If you go to the fish and chip shop, you ask for a fish supper, you're getting fish and chips. And Miss Hoolie is putting on a fish supper for all the children's grandparents. And I will say Miss Hoolie was not very fair here, because Spencer came over to visit her, and she explains they're having a fish supper, and then sends him out to find a game for the children to play, and to order, I think it was 26 fish suppers, and I feel like there was no forward planning involved in this at all. Obviously, I'm overthinking it. These are probably not things I would have picked up on as a child, but watching it as an adult viewer, there are things that make Miss Hoolie seem a little less than organised or considerate of Spencer's time. But nevertheless, Spencer takes this in his stride. He goes to visit Archie, who helps him create a game. And the great thing about this game is that it's kind of something that can be replicated at home. They make these little fish, and they put paper clips on them, metal paper clips, and they use magnets to catch the fish. I doubt I had magnets lying around as a child, but certainly I probably had like fridge magnets or something I could use. I don't know. But it's a very simple game in theory, and I thought it worked very well. Kind of like hook a duck, but magnet a fish instead. And it was good fun. Spencer then has to go and order the fish. He goes to Penny Pocket and Susie Sweets. And again, I feel like just rocking up at a cafe and ordering 26 fish suppers is not a good idea without any forward planning or giving them any advance notice. But again, this is my adult brain overthinking it. And it doesn't go to plan, so they have to find an alternative solution. And eventually they do. And they get the fish and chips, and they have a sing-song. And it's very sweet and very well done. And as I said, very realistic. It feels really believable, and I think that's one of the great things about the show. And we have some great songs, of course, a couple of songs that I'd forgotten, but which instantly came back to me. However, as I mentioned before, there was one song that I just could not remember, and it's the Penny Pocket and Susie Sweets song. And it's quite strange, because I remember all of the rest. I remember Spencer's and Archie's, Edie McCready's and PC Plum, but for some reason when they started singing theirs, no memory, no recollection at all. Very, very strange experience. But the rest of it, at least the songs, were very, very nostalgic, and I can really see, at least based on this first episode, why the show has been really successful and why it lasted for so long. And of course, with me being Scottish, that was always something that was a little bit extra special. I do really want to visit Tobermory one day, which is where the coloured houses are. It's a bit of a pain to get to if you don't drive, and I don't drive, but bearing in mind it's also on the Isle of Mull. But one day I would love to visit Tobermory and see the Balamory houses, because they're just an absolute joy to look at visually. They are just stunning. I don't know what Balamory has done for tourism in Tobermory, but I would imagine it's done something pretty positive. And in terms of being educational and making inclusivity as well, this is something that I really noticed with Balamory in general, is that it seemed very inclusive. So really a lot of great positives about the show. Watching Fish Supper with an adult brain was maybe not as delightful as it would have been as a child, but at the same time I still found it to be a beautifully nostalgic experience. And obviously watching Miles Jupp in this as well now is quite fun, because I've followed his stand-up career for a very long time, and of course I knew him first as Archie, and it took me quite a while to get used to him as Miles Jupp, the comedian, rather than Archie, the inventor. But now I'm the other way on now, and it was good fun to see him in this. And of course, Julie Wilson Nimmo as Miss Hoolie, absolutely fantastic. We also have Rod Christensen as Spencer, Mary Riggans as Susie Sweet, and Kim Tserkezie as Penny Pocket. I apologise if I've mispronounced that. I almost definitely have. Fish Supper was very sweet. Rather realistic. Well, the nursery setting was realistic. Miss Hoolie asking Spencer last minute to get that many fish suppers, hopefully not realistic, but also very, very nostalgic, and I had good fun watching it.